Welcome to Above and Below, the podcast of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. My name is Sonya Bohmann, and I am your host today, along with my co-host, Zulq Malik, and we have a special guest today joining us, Vikram Kapur. So, Zulq, take it away and do an introduction, please.
I'm Zulq Malik. I'm a founder here at Smart Build Construction. We're a technology company. However, in my previous life, I've spent almost the last 30 years in the construction ecosystem as a general contractor. Most of our audience will probably resonate with the fact that I've been where they've been, did all the stuff for working through the field and all the way up. I'm not a tradesman, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you want to look at it. However, being in touch with them for the last 30 years makes us realize that this is a dialogue that we all need to have with our ecosystem. And welcome, Vikram. I look forward to hearing more about you and getting to know you over the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Zulq, and thanks, Sonya, for inviting me to this excited podcast. So a little bit about myself. I'm Vikram Kapur. I go by Vic and many other names, but I prefer Vic, so you can call me that. A little background about myself. I've been in the safety field for almost 27 years. I worked in aerospace, beverage industry, manufacturing, technology, oil and gas, now utilities. And my truly passion is around safety, as you can tell, in different industries, because I really want people to feel safe and go back home to their lives, right? To their family, to their friends, to their pets safely. Just the way they came, even not even better, right? So that's been my purpose of my life. And also I incorporated aspects of mindfulness in the journey of safety to really focus on the total body, not just our physical body safety, but our mental health and safety as well. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank
Excited to
you.
have you.
And that's how we met, right? We met at a conference where you were presenting on that intersection between mindfulness and safety. So I would really love to hear more about how you started making those connections.
Yeah. Yeah, it was in Florida this year, right? At
Yeah.
ASS.
Yep.
So let me tell you a little bit more about mindfulness, because a lot of people get into the whole space of, hey, what are we talking about mindfulness and safety? All of a sudden, like two ends of different spectrum, right?
Perfect.
Mindfulness, it's not something new. It's been around for centuries. It started off in the eastern part of the world, with the different practices in India, from Vipassana, from Japan and Zen, and so on and so forth. But it can start coming to the western side of the world, more like towards 1940s, 1950s, in terms
Really?
of yoga and meditations and the yoga gurus that came to Hollywood, right? But truly, the mindfulness came into place in 1979 from John Kabat-Zinn, molecular biologist who brought in the aspect of his research around how to bring in the neuroscience and how the brain works, and from the practices of mindfulness. So it's not just meditation, of a lot of people think about it. And mindfulness, the formal definition is, there are many different definitions, but one of the definitions I do like is paying attention to the present moment without being judgmental, being open and
Mm,
curious, and just being aware of whatever is happening in that moment. So that's what mindfulness is all about, right? It's not about sitting and just doing meditation. You can achieve the same results and really tap into the benefits of your brain activity and the neuroscience with many different simple practices. And we'll talk about that too. So, weaving into how I got into it, so about 10 years ago, 2015, I was dealing with mental health challenges, right? I was having really tough time. My mind was clouded. I was even borderline in terms of physical health was deteriorating, possibly looking into substance use and
mm.
drugs and alcohol. It was a tough time for me at that time. And I remember dropping my son to his preschool one morning, and I was about to go to a safety operation oversight at work, and I started driving, and I didn't even know how I started and where I ended up. Next thing you know, I was sitting in the car. I was totally blanked out, zoned out, and I got a call from my boss, Denise, right? And she called me up and she goes, Vic, where are you? I'm like, oh, I started looking around. I'm like, I'm at a Whole Foods parking lot. She goes, what are you doing at a Whole Foods parking lot? We got a pre-job briefing and we got a heavy lift
Oh my
going on.
goodness.
You were
Or
hungry.
yeah, but I was not hungry for food. I was hungry for something else, which was up here. My mind was going 100 miles an hour, all clouded. I was totally lost. And that was the moment that it triggered me like, hey, something is going on. I'm going in this autopilot without recognizing what's happening in my life. And I showed up to a job site. We start doing pre-job brief. I'm still not there, right? And now we have a crew and we're going to do a heavy lift with crane operations and high risk work. And all of a sudden, something triggered inside me. And I said, I can't do this. We have stop work responsibility, right? When people are not safe, let's stop work for unsafe behaviors, right? In safety. So I applied stop work on myself and I said, I am not cut in to do this job because if I do this, somebody's going to die or get seriously hurt, including myself and my brothers and sisters who were working on that crew. So I stopped
That
work.
was hugely brave of you.
Yeah.
Hugely brave.
And
Wow.
Sonia, that moment changed my life forever, right? That moment was an awareness that kicked in, and that was where I didn't even know the term mindfulness or anything. I was practicing some holistic side of yoga, this and that. And then all of a sudden, I say, I need help. There's something going on. And then that's where I start getting into therapy, cognitive therapy. I start talking to my team about it because there's all stigma about mental health, right? We all know there's like people don't want to talk about things and this is 2015. And I really walked into my room in my office and I put my head down and I was like, I don't know what to do. But that was a close call. That was a near miss where I could have made a really bad decision and somebody could have gotten hurt. So I got with my boss and she said, hey, Vic, I get you. Something is going on. You need time. Amazing leader. Take time. And I went to my team. I started talking to my team about it. I said, hey, something is going on. This is what happened today. I'm being very vulnerable about it and I need time. And then I seek help. But to cut through the long story, I'm going to get to the part of the mindfulness. I started reading books about it. I started getting into some part of the meditation, but I didn't know how to meditate properly. So I reached out to a teacher in India and I said, hey, this came from India, right? Holistic practices. Can you teach me? Can I practice? He goes, yeah, sure. I can teach you, but you got to be here. But you're in San Francisco. What are you going to do? So I said, okay, I can come and visit. He goes, yeah, but you got to be here every month. And I'm like, I can't leave my family. I can't leave my work. So I said, okay, let me take a leap of faith. I went there, learned practice for a week, came back. And then I said, wow, I could see the changes happening in my body, in my mind. So I
Wow.
started to fly to India and I started to commit to it. Financial commitment, family commitment, work commitment. And I started flying every month. Once a month, I would fly on Thursday from San Francisco to Mumbai, India. It takes like 20 hours to get there. I would get there on Friday night, meditate straight for like 48 hours, Saturday, Sunday, fly Sunday night back to work on Monday. And I had that much energy, but I was so all cut in for this that I did this for 2 years and I practiced every single day, brought it to work. We start practicing in our teams at a job site and the benefits were amazing. So that's how I started getting into this. And then I went to UCLA and got my instructor certification for being a mindfulness facilitator. And I started leading that in the community, at workplace, and all the industries that I worked. I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's how I got into mindfulness part.
I think that's an awesome story, Vikram. And I think there's a lot of topics that go into being mindful. And, I'd say we kind of share cultural backgrounds, born and raised here, not really. But on a stigma level, culturally, most people are too scared to say, hey, I'm going to need to stop and reflect on my mindfulness, right? How am I mentally feeling? Because really a lot of people that are part of our construction ecosystem come from all walks of life. And talking about mental health it's getting way better.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Still really bad.
A long way to go still,
Still
though.
really bad. Way better. Really bad. And the
Mhm.
fact that you recognize from a cultural perspective where you recognize for yourself that I need to take care of me and that I legitimately have a problem and I need to get help. And you started seeking out that help, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, you're right on. It starts with self-awareness and self-care. And you're right on. It's where we were in the industry for construction, utility, manufacturing, and mental health. We had made some strides, but there's still a long way to go, like Sonya is mentioning.
It's a long way to go. And you mentioned a lot of the industries, and all of our industries intersect with one of the industries you worked with, which is beverages. A lot of us will come and intersect with the beverage industry at the end at some point in time. So the reality is that we have an industry that largely has to take their guard down. And that's the mindful practice number one, I think, is that, guys, put your guard down for all of 10 seconds and just look at the surroundings for us for a little bit.
You're right on. Yeah.
You obviously had the means and the whereabouts to travel to India for 20 hours and your family accommodated all. A lot of people are listening here is like, yeah, that's not practical for me. I'm never going to go to India. I'm not going to get on a plane for 20 hours every weekend and go do this. Is there one little tip you can give them? Say, hey, listen, guys, just exercise this in the morning of every day and just
Yeah.
detox. I know
You know,
for me, I did it with a psychotherapist where I
right.
would spew out my venom. So yes, I did have a psychotherapist, Sonya, as much as you probably think I needed one.
You have no judgment, Zulq. No judgment.
Yes, you're judging me. It's okay. I judge people all the time. Like it's okay. So yes, I used to have a psychotherapist. I used to go twice a week. And I wasn't being Tony Soprano or anything like that, where I was trying to plot how to deal with some issue. I just went there to detox. And what I found was when I detoxed for 40 minutes, I used every pejorative word you can think of. Right? You called people like that effing this so and so that. I didn't use the F word, Sonya. I used the effing part. I didn't get edited today, but I used all those words just to get out my expression and frustration. And after 40 minutes, everyone heard me swearing. So it's okay if you got to swear, you got to swear. But after that 40 minutes, I would sit in the Starbucks across the street, and the colors were more vivid. The people looked more normal. I wasn't having road rage. So Vikram, what can you share from your mindfulness experiences? You've obviously spent some time as a student, and now you're a teacher. So as a yogi, what could you tell our audience and say, hey, listen, just start here. That's your starting point.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you shared a great practice, right? When you talked about being at the Starbucks and you start seeing the colors and you start seeing what's happening around you, being aware and the senses are kicking in, that's being mindful, right? So the question that you asked earlier about, hey, you don't all can go to the East and learn this yogic practice and come back. Well, I get that question asked all the time. So they say, what did you learn in these 2 years of practicing and flying and becoming a 1 million miler on United Airlines? I was like, that's exactly what I became. I became a million miler status after 2 years, not became a yogi of an enlightened being, because the practice it's inside us. You don't have to go anywhere. Right. That's what I needed at that time. And I was excited to do so. And I had means and I had support systems. So I'm so blessed and grateful for that opportunity that I received, because it pivoted a path forward. But we don't have to do anything different than what we are doing. But how we do things changes the way we look at things. Right. So a basic tip is awareness. Are you self-aware of what is happening inside you and around you? You know, in safety, we call it human performance. It's being situationally aware of our surroundings. But one step forward is taking that safety of situational awareness and bringing that internal awareness. And it takes only one breath. It takes one question to ask ourselves, how am I doing right now? And that's what we need in the field. We don't need to be sitting on a cushion for like 10 minutes and meditating with eyes closed. And that's what becomes like, oh my God, there's that whole aspect of, am I going to become soft when I start to do meditation on a construction site? Well, a meditation can be done with just one breath, and you can keep your eyes open and you can still be working. Is before we do a high energy work, connecting on to electrical system or doing a heavy lift or doing any other high risk task, we take a pause and just take a deep breath. And that brings us to the present moment. So mindfulness done is in three ways, the tips you're asking about. One is connecting to your breath. The second is connecting to the sounds around you. And the third is body sensation. Like what are you feeling right now? And that's how you
So
connect.
I got to ask you a follow-up question, my friend, because a lot of people are going to say taking a breath. They don't know what that means. They're like, okay, I breathed. That's not taking a breath, right?
Yeah.
So could you talk about that idea of taking a breath? Because there's a lot of people that are now looking at breath work.
Mhm.
And it's coming up as a topic, not as big as obviously meditation and mindfulness, right? But it's almost like the precursor before you can get to the next stage, right? So what does taking a breath mean?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So taking a breath is more about a conscious breath. We are breathing anyway. That's one thing we have. The first thing when we are born to the sorry, I drink my tea this morning. So
That's early for you. So thanks for joining us this early.
no,
Well, that's right. He's on the West Coast.
He is on the West Coast. So it
But
is
that's not
crack
early.
of dawn there. Yep.
It's 8:30 in the morning. That's half the day is done in California.
okay.
They're
So
done their
we'll go
job.
back to your question. What is taking a breath means, right? So it's a conscious breath. That's one thing. When we are born, we take it in, and the last exhale is when we die, right? Between that journey, we're breathing in and out, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. But the thing is, that's where we can be conscious about. Even one conscious breath brings us back into the moment. And conscious means is being aware. When breath is going in, when you're inhaling, where is it going in? Is it going through your nose? Is it in your chest? Is it in your abdomen? And then you exhale. Just that practice of consciousness brings you into the state of mindfulness. Your brain starts to become more in a calm state. The amygdala part of the brain, which is a fight and flight, it starts to go down. It starts to put in the rest. And that's what happens. We rush through things. We get distracted, right? Our prefrontal cortex, where our attention is, right? Because we are not focused and you're trying to do 10 things at the same time. And all of a sudden there's an accident. You're like, I was aware of that, but I was doing this task and I got in a safety accident. So being aware is conscious breath. It slows us down. And that's the whole purpose. We want to slow ourselves down so we can be aware of what's happening around us.
So
I
I'm
know
going to take
that.
it even further for our audience now. I've practiced martial arts for a number of years. I also did a lot of meditation and do yoga sometimes. I haven't done enough of it because of back injuries. Let's talk about actual tricks on how to breathe, because there's an art to breathing. And before we can take that breath, you have to know the art of breathing, right? So people think they just go, is
Well,
breathing.
this is the fun side of Zulq we're seeing right now.
No, you see, you don't know this about me, Sonya. I got like these
Don't.
old
I
dimensions.
am
and you're like-
loving this. This is
You're
like,
like, what the hell? Who is this guy?
if I
He's
could
like-
quote Shrek for a minute, you're like an onion.
There's lots of layers, my dear. It could be a red one or a white onion or a Spanish onion. You get lots of onions.
Focus, grasshopper.
Okay, so let's talk about breathing, because it's a really big discipline, and it's the start of this mindfulness journey. So people, like, I can tell you from martial arts, you breathe through your nose, you hold the air, and you exhale through your mouth. Vikram, you spent time in India. You've been with some substantial yogis, I imagine. What would be your trick to tell them, listen, this is how you take a breath, right? That's not breath.
And I will answer that question, and I'll tell you, martial arts, another form of mindfulness, right? We're going to be
100%.
relating every single thing to what is mindfulness, right? Even washing your dishes with being full attention is mindfulness too. So I'll tell you,
We can skip the dishes part.
before I
That
get
doesn't
into
work.
that.
Okay.
One story that I'll share from this year. It was in February because I do a lot of research around how the brain works and how can we incorporate that into our daily lives and really make it into, like, how can we reach that state of mindfulness in like less than 10 seconds, right? And bring it out to the field where our coworkers are working on high risk work because they don't have time. So one of the stories that I'll share is I read about research around breath work and how the breath manages the whole nervous system in our brain. And I went to Bali in Indonesia for 1 month in 2025 in February.
I want his life.
I'm sorry?
I want your life.
Well, I'll tell you.
Listen, don't
you-
let Zulq fool you, Mr. Mexico, leaving it for a month. So keep going, Vic. Keep
So I'll,
going.
I'll tell you, I used all my PTO. I had to convince my family, like, oh my God, like this is part of my research. And it was because I lived like a monk for a month. I was I went there to practice on breath, on breathing, like how do you breathe? And for 1 month, I lived on like a little rice, walked barefoot through the rice fields, sat under trees, 16-hour days of breathing and focusing on like internalizing it. Because it's one thing when you can read on the research paper and the scans of the brain on how it works. And it's another thing practicing and feeling it for yourself. And I'm all about, I want to experiment and feel in a way that what the research shows, right? So I went in and I started breathing. And there's 3 ways we can breathe. One, what you demonstrated, right? Breathe in, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. The other one is inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose. And the third one is inhale through your mouth and exhale through your mouth. And the third one is the worst one. But that's where, we have traumas in our body that we keep storing in our fascia. And in breath work, if somebody takes a breath work course or goes through that, they'll make you breathe through your mouth a lot because you want to get into the space of releasing the trauma for the practice. But ideally, if you want to get into more relaxed state, like you said, you breathe in through your nose and you hold your breath and you can breathe out through your mouth and you exhale. If you exhale longer than you inhale, you get more into the calm state of your mind. And we bring, even at my current workplace, we bring different kind of breath work into our field. When we do a pre-job briefing before we're going to go and do the work, we do breath work. So another way of when we're in the calm state, we want to breathe in through our nose, exhale through our nose as well at the same time. But when we're trying to bring the focus and really calm our body down, that's when we do inhale, exhale through our mouth. So there's a really cool trick on breathing that Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford, he came up with the research recently, and it talks about double inhale, exhale. And we practice that at my current location and my current work. And we say, anytime you feel stressed or you feel anxiety and you want to bring your heart rate down, you want to bring your overall calmness in your mind and body, you can do it in one breath. And the way it works is you do inhale, so double inhale, and you exhale. So you go hold, another hold, and exhale through your mouth. You do that, and you know what? I start talking about during our pre-job briefs, sometimes we had eye rolls, sometimes we had this. But you know what? Now when I start going out to the sites and we think about mindfulness being soft sometimes, and there's a whole stigma about mental health. And I said, nobody needs to know. But I start getting our coworkers who are like, hey, you know what? I practice this when I'm at home. I get home and my kid wants to da-da-da-da, or something is happening and I just slow down and I double inhale, exhale. I'm much more in a calmer state and I can have a conversation. Same thing at work, same thing before getting behind the wheels. So there's a lot to it, but you're absolutely right, Zulq. It's about how we breathe. And I would say if we have to take one thing away from breath work, is to have a conscious breath.
Yeah.
Just slow down and be aware of one breath, and that will change the moment where you are at.
Well, if I can just quickly add, now I'm not a scientist or a clinical specialist like you, but if I can relate to our audience, when our children are acting out, if you have children, if you don't have children, the very first thing we tell them is, okay, slow down, take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm. We need to tell
And it's funny,
ourselves
as
that.
we get older, we don't stop and take a deep breath. So I think what Vikram's just shared is, how do you take a deep breath? And I think the double breath, first off, there's a science behind breathing through your nose. This is my biology side. You actually regulate the temperature through your nose first. So all the vessels, all your arteries, and all the veins that are running through your nose, it's the quickest way to actually climatize the air that's going up your nostrils, right? And goes into your lungs. And the double breath is about filling your diaphragm. So you're actually filling your entire diaphragm, right? So people say, when I take a deep breath, you're not necessarily filling up your entire diaphragm, and everyone's diaphragm is a little bit different. So there's a science to all of this. It's not just some holistic stuff that came out in the middle of somewhere in a jungle, there's actual scientific proof behind all of this that says these are the right way to do things because you're controlling metaphysically how your body's taking that oxygen into the body. So
Yeah,
let's dig into that a little bit because I would love to, not just the science of it, but there's still going to be people, particularly I would think, not just in our craft who we want them to start practicing this, but in our leadership who says, how do I know this works? What's the measurable outcome here? So let's shift a little bit to that conversation if we could.
yeah, definitely. So the measurable side of all of this is there, right? To even put a business case in front of leadership, it's about the business that we are doing, right? So even this adds into the positive aspect of the business. I have launched a similar program in autonomous vehicle manufacturing environment. I've launched this in oil and gas industry. I've launched this in construction and utility industry, and then also in technology, like office-based workers, right? So this applies to all skills. We have leading indicators and lagging indicators, right? So in the leading indicators of this, we can look at our surveys that go out to employees. How are they feeling? What is the morale? Because a lot of people, there's an epidemic of loneliness. There's people getting burnt out. There's stress and anxiety is increasing year over year. Even in construction industry, there's a lot more people, like 40 to 50%, was where I read recently, where people are feeling stressed and having anxiety. This time of the year, like there's a winter time, right? There's a seasonal depression that kicks in. There's
Short
holiday
days.
season that brings in other aspects to it too. So the morale and how people feel, there's that part. So how are people feeling in that moment? There's a morale boost. People feel more joyous out of it. But then also the studies that show from the field perspective, people are able to see a lot more hazards when they're at a work site. So I did a study in the oil and gas industry with union representative employees who have never done any meditation, didn't even know a word about mindfulness, right? And we did this for 6 weeks. During a pre-job briefing, we introduced an aspect of check-in, seeing how are you doing in your mind, in your body. And there's a small slip, they will fill it out and they'll drop it in. And there was also the whole part of like, what are you doing? There's a lot of hesitation there, right? They were sitting like this, all, closed position. And they're like, these tough
Sure.
people, right? And then all of a sudden, there was the whole part of like, this doesn't belong to me, but I'm still part of the study. And the hesitation start going when every single day they just start checking in before they started doing the work. And their mood change, the morale change. And then we had this sheet called hazard recognition sheet where they will go around and look for hazards on the job site. That started to go up. It went up almost 10 times more what during the study, while
Wow.
before they even did the study. Right. So there's a leading indicator. You are able to recognize the hazards before an incident takes place. That's part of the leading indicator. The lagging indicator would be our serious injuries or fatalities. So when we start to have these practices, if you even look the distractions that are happening in the workplace or even in the environment, according to the National Highway Safety Transportation, there was I think the number was over 3,300 people died on the roads in 2023 due to distracted driving. So the distraction reduces by having a practice of bringing mindfulness, right? Just being able to be aware of situations. So the lagging indicators also show we have less incidents when people are practicing that. So the business case itself comes down to you have improved retention of employees. You have employees who are happier and joyous and really connect to the work. You have employees who are showing up to work and connecting with each other. The morale of the team boosts, the productivity increases. You get a lot better quality of the product, right? Less errors happen when you're working and being and the learning and the knowledge transfer happen more. And from the lagging side, you're saving cost as well, because there's a cost associated with the incidents there, with errors and production. So there's a direct correlation with how we think and how we show up to work site and how the result of the product is going to be. And every time I brought it up, and I'll tell you this, every single time I brought this up to our leadership in different companies or to the coworkers who are in the front line, hardly got a pushback, because people know we are human beings. Everybody goes through stress and anxiety, and we're not. And one thing I would say is everybody's afraid of a flavor of the month or flavor of the year.
Yes.
Here's a
Yep.
new next thing. So
Mhm.
instead of making this a new thing, it's not what we're going to do, it's how we are going to do. How are we going to show up to our one-on-one meetings and being more mindful listening? Being present when we're listening and talking and having a conversation, or showing up to the job site and being aware of, hey, what's going on around me, right? So that's what it is. It's not something new. It's we already do work. We're already doing everything, but how we show up matters. And that's where this whole leadership and coworker buy-in comes in.
See, that aligns so much with what we believe, because for us, like you said, it's not a flavor of a month. It's not a 2 times a year conversation, but a 12-month a year conversation. And that's why I think these things go hand in hand so tightly.
Absolutely. And as a person who's owned a business, I just say it's real simple. Look at people that actually practice martial arts. They do it into their 80s. People in construction can't go to their 80s. People who practice meditation, you can see people doing yoga into their 80s and 90s. So, and it all starts with a simple element is just starting with the breathing part of the exercise that takes you down the road. And being prepared for a meeting is very important, because the reality is that everything we do, whether we get in our car, sorry, got background noise here, we got to be mindful. And the stats, if you're looking for clinical proof that it's going to work in your company, you're already behind the 8 ball, because you haven't stopped taking a breath and thought about the potential benefits. The cost of breathing is, I don't know what, about a minute. Let's do that 5 times a day. That's 5 minutes of your life that you're going to invest into your employees. That's not the problem, right? We spend a lot more money on coffee and donuts that pollute our bodies versus just say, hey, let's just stop and take a breath for a minute. That's your starting point to getting to a better place. So you're not going to find proof that's going to statistically apply to your company, but it applies to everyone on the universe and on the planet.
Yeah. And, one of the senior leaders, a C-suite in one of the organizations I was talking to, and I asked a question, what's your number one asset for your company? And his answer was like, it's always people. People are my assets. Technology comes and goes, right? And people, if we invest in
easy. I'm a technology provider.
right?
He'll
But
be okay.
technology is evolving, but the people are still very much
it's
needed.
it's run the humans.
So
Yeah.
investing in the human and then investing into the asset, that's where the human energy really comes into place. And that was the tagline for their company, is around human energy. But that's what it's all about. And you're right. So it's about martial arts as another form. And there's different ways that we can lead without even creating names. One of the effects called a Batman effect. I don't know if you have heard of that terminology. My son is in martial arts. He's in Taekwondo, second degree black belt. And he was going to go and spar with somebody who was like almost 2 feet taller than him and stronger than him. And he was so nervous and having anxiety. And he's like, and I was like, hey, son, is everything okay? That's the first thing. And I don't want to go and tell him like, hey, what's wrong with you kind of thing. I was like, hey, do you want to talk about this? And that's how we approach worksite too. Think about
100%.
when you approach somebody, you're approaching from empathy and being present versus trying to tell somebody is just being there for someone, right? Mental health first aid is all about that too, right? It's about assessing a situation, right? Like, oh, what's going on? So he goes, yeah, I'm actually really nervous sparring this person because he's taller, he's stronger. I've seen him in practices. And I was like, it's okay. Take a deep breath, So, and he meditates with me too. He's like 14. And you know what? I told him, here's what you can do. Imagine someone that is your superhero in your mind and see how that character does their own sparring, or how would they do it? And he watches anime and he's like, yeah, Naruto. I was like, okay, I don't watch an anime, but he started imagining that. And he went in thinking he's playing that character. And when he came out, he got the gold medal in the sparring. And
Amazing.
for me, it was like, that's great. And that's called Batman effect. And we can do that at workplace too. When we
Oh, I
show up,
love it.
when we,
Okay.
and we can imagine ourselves walking into the job site and saying, hey, who do I idealize, right? And it doesn't have to be like a superhero. It could be the foreman that, trained me, or somebody like in my community who I see as a hero person, right? And as an image, and then imagine that and following through it. The other psychological breakthrough is around chameleon effect. When people say, like, how do I bring mindfulness? How can I make somebody meditate? And how can I make them? You don't have to make them do anything. Earlier, you mentioned about like breathing, like, hey, breathe like this, or conscious breathing. It's more about you start practicing and you take inhale and you exhale and watch other people start to mimic. We are
100%.
mimicking each other. It's like monkey see, monkey do, but it's called chameleon effect. When we start to show up as leaders on a job site and walk through the job site with PPE and hard hat, and really being present and being mindful, everybody starts to
That's
mimic that
amazing.
behavior. And a leader doesn't have to be by title. It has to be by authority
Mhm.
that you show up, right? As a
Leaders by
leader.
action.
Yes.
Leader
Leaders are
by
by
action,
action.
100%.
Mhm.
Leaders lead by action.
So,
Absolutely.
The iron fist theory, that's long gone. Doesn't even work in politics anymore. You lead by action.
yes.
Well,
Stop it.
this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your practices with us. We do have a couple of minutes left. So, if you wouldn't mind, would you like to take our listeners through a little bit of an exercise?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we won't do a meditation, but we'll do a mindfulness practice, which you can apply anywhere, anytime, without even people knowing that you're doing this practice. Okay. So before you get into your car to drive, or when you show up to your job site, or you're having the holiday dinner with your family, or what have you. So I just want you to just sit comfortably, just drop your shoulders and look around. Look around. You don't have to close your eyes. You can just look around your
Close
room,
my
your
eyes.
surroundings, and look for 3 things that stand out for you. Just in your room. It could be the light, could be near, could be far. Just grab that attention. Now bring your senses to your hearing. What are 2 things you can hear? Bring that to, could be my voice, could be something else. And what is one thing that you're feeling right now? It could be the chair, the floor, the clothes, the wind. And now one thing that you're grateful for in this moment. And that's it. See, that practice, what it does is, now first, before I talk about it, do you want to share your experience? How did you feel?
For me, when you said drop your shoulders, I recognize that the whole time I've been sitting with them up. It's always kind of my initial posture. So that immediately helped. Like I could feel my neck kind of lengthen. It, the looking around, I have pictures of my family ahead of me, and I have a gift that my very best friend from when I was a teenager, and we're still really great friends, she sent me. And so I kind of looked around and I thought, my office is surrounded by love. And so that was, it's just a reminder that, and then when you got to the gratitude part, is that I really get to do what I love every day. And so it was just a nice reconnection that all of that is present in my space.
It's
That
wonderful.
was
Thank
deep,
you for
Sonya.
sharing.
And use of.
Oh, I don't even know how to do it. Forget it. I'm not gonna even try. Uh, I got to look around and I saw this pistachio Dubai chocolate that one of my employees just brought to me, and I got to savor that later because I'm hungry. No, I actually I practice gratefulness and mindfulness on a regular basis because that's what it centers me. Listen, I'm a lot like a lot of the people that are listening in on this podcast, where we have a lot of things on our plate all the time, and we just need to stop and smell the roses for all of 40. This took less than 45 seconds.
Absolutely.
And I've
Yeah.
known this for a long time. And I appreciate, Vikram, that, you know what, we're sharing this with the industry and the community as a whole. But this is an easy exercise where you just go, all right, I'm relaxed. I'm cool. I can take on the next challenge. And that's really what we're up against in construction, is that we have another challenge every time we turn, whether it's materials not being in the right place, it's, a deadline that we got to hit, it's somebody didn't show up and I needed them to help me to get this done. These are all things that are just temporary obstacles that we just need to stop. And, we're going to get to what Sonya always gets to. So you'll get to where I'm going to be from a grateful perspective. But yeah, we just need to stop and just slow it down for 10 seconds. It's not long.
And there's a whole science behind what we just did. It felt like maybe it was less than a minute, maybe 10,
Mhm.
20,
It was.
30 seconds of practice, but you just brought awareness to your surrounding. We just tapped
Mhm.
into situational awareness. You also tapped in internalizing and bringing awareness internally, how you're feeling, right? So instead of your mind being in the past or future, you brought yourself to the present moment and you were more grounded,
Mhm.
focused, and feeling grateful, right? So that's what a practice does. It makes you feel to be in the present moment without any judgment, being open and being curious of what, hey, there's a chocolate there, or there's a gift from my friend there.
Yeah.
And that's what it does. Without naming something, meditation,
Mhm.
bring a short practices like that. Like Zulq mentioned, even taking a breath itself, breathing through your nose and exhaling, telling your mind you're present right now before we're going to do this work or whatever task we're going to do.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that with Vikram. And I'm hoping everyone could see that 35, I think it was over 43 seconds. That's all it took. It's not a 10, 15 minutes. It's not a trip to India for 20-hour plane ride. It's literally right here.
So as we end every podcast, we like to ask our guests, what is your word for the upcoming year? So we're about to start 2026. We will air this in January. So what is your 2026 word of the year?
Don't steal mine, Vikram.
A
Okay.
new one, Zulq, for 2026.
I'm holding on, man.
Well, I would say awareness, being aware of every moment that happens. Life is just moving so fast. The time just keeps, I think like another year is gone, right? Before we know 26 starts and it will end soon. So take moment of everything and just take it in, right? So for me, it's taking those moments and enjoying and being fulfilled and spending time with my friends, my family, my coworker family, and in the community. So awareness is my word for 2026.
Awesome. Zulq, go ahead.
No, I want to hear your word.
My word is community.
Yeah.
Wow, you changed.
I did. So
How
last year
could
my
you?
word was intentionality. And I spent a lot of time being very intentional last year. And part of that led me to community, because what I really want to focus on this year is us working with others that have voices that align with ours and building a bigger and stronger community.
That's
Nice.
All right, Zulq, hit it.
So I've been holding on to this. It's going on to year 9 for me, and I don't think I'm changing it anytime soon. I exercise gratefulness. I'm just grateful. It's my word. I'm just grateful to be in a position that I can be part of this conversation. I'm grateful to be a dad to an awesome, almost 9-year-old who, like your son Vikram, she's into martial arts, and I have to tell her to breathe on a very regular basis just to calm her nerves down. But I'm just grateful because you know what? We're having the opportunity to have this conversation to help so many people, and we're not any more special than they are. We're just having that opportunity. So I'm just grateful that we're here and that we're always having that conversations for them.
That's
Well, thank
beautiful.
you. We are grateful that you brought awareness to our community. So everybody, thanks for listening today. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you,
Right.
Sonya.
Thank you.
Thanks.